Okay. Okay. Great. My name is Mary Going, and I fucked up. Already I fucked up here, too. I wasn't supposed to press that yet. So I started a fashion company. I poured my heart and soul into it. I was in the New York Times. I was on NPR. I signed Leah Delaria to be, from Orange is the New Black, to be a model. I outfitted hundreds of people for their weddings, their proms, their job interviews, once for a funeral. I wanted to reflect the beauty of the queer and trans community, and I didn't want to do it small. I wanted it to be big. I needed it to be big. I needed it to be so big that it would change the way we see sex and gender. Because I wanted you to be able to sit at your computer in our blue California state, or in Malden, South Carolina, a little red nowhere state where I grew up, and click and order something that made you feel validated, that made you feel like you, that I wanted you to feel awesome. And I did it. People loved the clothing that we made. They raved about us on Facebook. People sent me love letters saying that they wanted us to come to their hometown. People called me a hero. It's hard for me to say that. I also lost a lot of people's money, and I lost friends, and I screwed up my health, and I almost lost my marriage. In the end, we ran out of money, and I had to close the doors, and I had to file bankruptcy twice. Once for the company, and once for our household. And in the process, I learned a few things which I would like to share. I think the failure boils down to two things. One, I didn't raise enough money. And two, I made everything in my life less important than this company. Okay, here's some things I learned. It's easier if your startup has words like fintech, biotech, blockchain, cryptocurrency, AI, VR, ball sack. Two, determination is the #1 factor for success. But determination requires sleep and eating healthy and having relationships with people. I didn't do any of those things for 4 years. 3, scrappiness is for sprints, not for marathons. I mean, I was trying to create this big, giant thing with like 10% of the money that we needed. You can do a lot with determination and scrappiness, but after a while, it is not sustainable. Oh, wait, I'm supposed to be clicking this thing. Okay. You have to have enough money to not be an asshole. I mean, look, if you're trying to do this much with this few resources, one of those resources is people, and there just wasn't enough, and I was like, do it, do it, do it, do it. I was an asshole. Next. Same slide. You cannot blame being an asshole on not having enough money. I was an asshole. I was an asshole because I was an asshole. I'm sure the money would have helped buffer it a little bit, but it didn't change the fact that I'm a control freak or a perfectionist. Oh my God, I'm being heckled. Okay. Raising money is easier if you're a man. I didn't know this before I started. Only 1 to 7%, depending on what statistic you look at and how racism affects you, only 1 to 7% of venture capital goes to women. Ball sack! Of course I love you. is not a good relationship strategy. It is not a good substitute for actually spending time with people. 9. Oh, no. I'm sure these are, I changed them right before the. 9, cotton shrinks. Pro tip.
Oh.
That's a whole nother night. 10. $137,000 is not a lot of money. That was our Kickstarter amount. We raised way more than we had planned to, and I grew up poor, and I thought $137,000 was so much money. I thought that with $137,000 and scrappiness and determination that I could do anything. But you need $1 million to start a clothing company, and I didn't know that. And this was part of the thing that I had to learn is that, and you know what, I'm really good at spreadsheets, didn't help. 11, if you want work-life balance, you have to get the fuck up and go home. And when you get home, you have to talk about something other than work. 12. Do your fucking job is not a good management strategy. Being an entrepreneur means that you're a visionary. You can see things that other people can't see. Another word for that? Delusional. Okay. I have to make.
Oh my gosh.
Celebrities are not all you think they are. Whoops. Let's see. I don't know. Let's go back to that. Walking 2 blocks to work at 7 a.m. and the same 2 blocks home at 7 p.m. is not an exercise plan. Bankruptcy is not as fun as it sounds. I knew when we started that bankruptcy was a possibility, and I said, if we file bankruptcy, I want it to be for $1 million, because that will prove that I really tried, that I gave it my all. When we were sitting there with the attorney, it was $400,000. I asked her if we could exaggerate. Not fun. All right. Well, whatever. So when I was compiling these, I thought, you know, it seemed like the theme is I really needed to know myself before I started this, because apparently when the shit hits the fan, I am an asshole. And I needed to know that because you don't solve any of these problems when you're in it. You can barely keep your head above water. What I needed was all the scaffolding that prevents me from being an asshole. Exercise, a relationship with my wife, relationship with my kids, relationship with my friends, eating well, sleep. I needed all of that stuff. And I needed to be willing to be bad at it. Look at it, all this, I don't regret any of this. I was willing to be bad at it in order to get good at it. But I also needed to love myself through all, let's go to this one, through all the mistakes I made. Because I think if I had loved myself through all those mistakes, I might not have been so much of an asshole. Thanks.
Are you gonna do it again?
Yeah.
You know, if you're willing to be bad at it in order to be good at it, that would say that I would be a better bet the second time around, right? So I don't know. I have to get permission from the people that I wasn't so nice to the first time.
Why is knowing that cotton shrinks important?
So when you're making clothing, there's all these steps, right? And you can imagine this big giant 80-foot table with fabric spread out on it, and you put the pattern on top of that, and a laser comes and cuts it, or sometimes in the cutting houses they use jigsaws and these men are crawling around on the tables. Well, if you do that if you do that and you don't wash it first, because you can send it all to another house that washes it, and they pre-shrink it. You've seen those words, pre-shrink. I didn't pre-shrink these two things that we were making, pajama bottoms and a shirt. And so, you know, we made them based on a size whatever, that once the person took it home, it became a size whatever -2. So that's why. Yeah, I could have shortened that story. All right. Who else has a question?
Out of curiosity, what happened to the rest of your line? Like when you had leftover clothing, I'm assuming. I'm curious what happened for you next.
Bankruptcy sucks. Did I say that?
Yeah, no, I heard that.
So when you file bankruptcy, you no longer own your stuff. The people who you owe money to own it, and they can do with it what they will. But you know, they decided it wasn't worth anything, and then the landlord is like, "You got to get out, get out, get out." And we live in an apartment that's designed for humans, not for inventory, and so I gave it to the various and sundry people. Yep.
How long on your journey did you realize that you didn't raise enough capital to continue the business?
Well, in the very beginning, we didn't even have enough to cover the cost of goods sold for the Kickstarter goods. So I raised a little bit in the beginning, but after you get started, we were going so fast and trying to make the clothes, trying to fulfill the clothes, and then I didn't really know how to raise money. I didn't have a Rolodex full of people, so I knew fairly early on. I did all this work to try to raise money, and we did raise some, but not enough. So pretty soon. You?
Thanks again, Mary, for sharing your story. I'm curious as to what the end goal was, right? So you had a clothing line. Was it to sell at Target? Was it to go to Walmart? Was it like... What was the goal?
I mean, at a mission level, my goal was to change the way we perceive sex and gender. But at an exit strategy level, I really wanted to build a brand that could be bought by a brand house that you know, could continue on. I like starting things, so I wanted to change the world and then go change the world at something else. Oh wait, there was one right here.
So my experience in sort of non-retail space is that the CEOs spending 80% of their time fundraising. You mentioned you pretty much started undercapitalized. What percentage of your time were you actually out trying to raise funds versus actually leading and visioning the company? Because retail is a whole different...
Versus sleeping, right. Well, in the end, more and more and more, but we were so undercapitalized that I was also doing all of the order entry, all of the, you know, everything, even coordinating models. And, you know, so I think that's the biggest piece that I was missing, is how much money we needed and how to raise it, how much time I should spend on it, because we really should have started with more staff so that I did have that time. But, you know, we traveled around the country for a whole year when we first got started, and visited cities and did pop-ups and measured people. I can guess, you know, everyone in here, I could guess your size and be within a few. I'm really good at it now. Yeah. The venture capitalists don't care, though. Let's see, Tanya?
I'm curious, because I see a lot of people using Kickstarter as a strategy. So now kind of knowing what you know about Kickstarter and what that did, like, was there a pressure to go because you had all these people's, you know, $20, $30, $40. So would you say don't use Kickstarter, use it later? Like, what would be your strategy to us in the room about Kickstarters?
I would say that Kickstarter should be part of your strategy, because, you know, when you're starting a business, basically you have this idea, like a vision. I have a vision, and you have basically no proof that it's a good idea, but you believe it's a good idea. And so if I could do it over again, I would say let's line up people who want to invest in the company, but they need some proof, and then let the Kickstarter be proof. So these people are like, if you raise $137,000 on Kickstarter, we'll kick in $500,000 and then another $500,000, so that you have this as proof. It's really more proof and less, and it needs to be proof not only that people are excited about it, but that they're willing to pay an amount that proves profitability. So you can't discount it too much. There's a hand here. You cut me off whenever you're ready.
First, I love your style. So as a marketing person, I think you would have made a great, fundraiser.
I was better at marketing. I mean, that was not our problem, right?
Yeah. So, but two, to the social mission of what you were doing, both, in terms of, creating images for LGBTQ, and also, did you do your manufacturing in the U.S., and was that part of your fundraising strategy to lean into the, social innovation, social impact part of your work?
I think your question is, did we manufacture in the U.S., and was that part of our brand?
Yes.
Okay. We did do most of our manufacturing in the U.S., but I will say that ethics are complicated. Ethics are very complicated. It's hard to say all clothing manufactured in the United States is done ethically, and it's also difficult to say all clothing manufactured outside the U.S. is bad. And so, I did manufacture in the U.S. because we had small enough batches that it wasn't cost effective to go outside the U.S., but I didn't make it part of the brand because I really wanted, it's just too complex. It felt, I don't know, what's the word for racism that means outside the country? It felt wrong to make it bad to manufacture outside the U.S. And a couple times we manufactured a vest in China. And, oops, sorry, I'm touching the mic, sorry. Yeah. So, we cared a lot about ethics, labor practices. In all of our factories, we cared a lot about that, but not specifically U.S. Okay. And there was a question here?
What key metrics would you focus on in the future if you do it over again?
Well, having enough money, of course, is one.
Being undercapitalized and being an asshole.
Right. I mean, it's...
And knowing that tension exists between having good staff and being able to pay them well.
Right. I mean, one of the key metrics that we actually... So now, as a job, I do financial planning and analysis for startups because I really wanted to see what the inside of businesses look like. And so I have a couple of clothing companies in my portfolio, and our company did so much better than theirs, and they've raised so much more money. It's kind of validating and shitty all at the same time. So, in the beginning, revenue is one of the key metrics because you just have to prove that anybody gives a shit, right? Then, of course, becomes profit or the cost to acquire a customer versus the lifetime value of a customer is important, and then your gross profit margin. Those are the things that I would pay attention to. Geek question. All right.
What would be your message for the VC community so that they invest more money on women entrepreneurs or LGBTQ entrepreneurs?
Fuck you! No. I don't know. I mean, so if you pay attention to what's really going to be successful, the statistics all show that women are more likely to be successful than men. And so the fact that you would pass up these companies just seems like stupid investing. So I'd say get smart and fuck you. Thank you.
That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, again. Sorry, Karen. Should use the F word a lot. It was really hard to get her to accept to organize so nice at first. Let's say it. But anyway, so our second speaker tonight is Saint